all right there? Just the smell of salt water that's in the air. And the sunrise. She's walking on water. She's walking on water. Imagine waking up not knowing if today is your last one. Tell me what would you say if you had some? Everybody tell you that you're young but you're dying, which is weird cause you feel so alive. And she has a dream to be queen of the ocean. Mad emotion, showing her devotion. On her surfboard, fully in motion. Hoping for a miracle when the eyes burst open. She wakes up and takes up a surfboard. Heads out from the seashore. And from the world where she lives. She's got no fears or worries at all right there. Just the smell of salt water that's in the air. And the sunrise. She's walking on water. She's walking on water. Face up, toes in the sand. Surfer girl gave up, trying to understand. Soon get to living on the side die. She's tired of goodbyes cause they make her cry. Looking in the sky, blue as her eyes. Watching the rising of the sun. Well, how time flies when you're outside and you're in love and you're having fun. Remember the early days when she was laying down on the sand with the fam. And she had a plan, bam, to wake up after daylight. Watch her eyes like the sun on the run from the night. Feels so alive when she wakes up and takes up a surfboard. Heads out from the seashore. From the world where she lives. She's got no fears or worries at all right there. Just the smell of salt water that's in the air. And the sunrise. From the world where she lives. From the world where she lives. From the world where she lives.
Hey everybody, it's Wes Siler here with Preserve Navarre Live, and I am joined by my good friend Carmen Reynolds. Good to see you.
Thank you, Wes.
Absolutely. So we've already had some people join live. Sounds like the sound is good, so if you could confirm that for me. It's a live show. We're broadcasting from Navarre, and the best part of this is getting to talk with people and getting their comments. I'll bring up a couple already. I had Mark's Music Obsession come in, so somebody on YouTube is watching us. Thanks, Mark. A couple other Facebook users on YouTube. Summers Beach said this is awesome. Looks like Nancy, Sherry, a couple other people are on here. Always fun. And Carmen, I'm so excited to have you on the show because the last time we did an interview, I think it was at my kitchen table in my house, and we just kind of.
It was fine.
But now we're upgrading. You know, we're starting to figure this out a little bit better, and I'm trying to have a professional environment that matches the professionalism that you bring, because you're in so many different causes and efforts, and it's always just it's a pleasure and it is a privilege to have you. For an hour to talk about all the important things you're doing.
Thank you. My mind never rests.
I know. And everybody who knows Carmen knows this. Is first of all, everybody knows you. And when you come in the door, it changes every single meeting because people know, okay, we got to mind our P's and Q's. We got to have all of our documents together because Carmen's going to ask those questions that, man, I don't know if I thought about that. Or
inquisitive mind.
Yeah. But you're into so many different things, you know. You're holding folks accountable, but you're also pushing for advocacy and for causes that are important to the community. I mean, I remember going to the Sea Turtle Center, right, and that event that they had, and you were the lady. The spotlight was on you because all of the grants that you did for them. I mean, they loved you in that place, and as they should.
The turtle soiree, it's one of my passions, the sea turtles.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a couple other.
So honored to be asked to be a part of their board, but I had to find a niche to fit into, so I had to teach myself how to write grants.
But you've done it. I mean, you've done it, and look at the results of it. Look at what you've accomplished with that, and so many other things. So. what we're going to get into tonight, I can't wait for, because this was an issue I didn't even know that you were involved in until fairly recently, because I'm just trying to keep up, Carmen. I'm trying to keep up with what you're doing.
Well, actually, I've been working on this for years, but there wasn't much support.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and it got derailed.
Right.
And there were some non-believers, some surprising non-believers, and the rest is history, and I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, but you don't give up. So we're going to be talking about the Veterans Treatment Court that Carmen is working hard and advocating for. On this show, like I said, it's live, so you can post comments. If you're watching a few days later, you can still email us. You can still send us comments, and we can send those to Carmen. But I do want to take a second and just highlight a couple folks before we get into that, because there's some awesome people that make this possible, and the Panhandle Shop is one of them. This is one of our sponsors for the show. And I don't know if you know Tom and Helen Tuttle, but these are awesome people who are running a small local business, and this is what they do, is these beautiful American flags, these wooden flags of different sizes, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And I think you've seen a couple of their products.
Right
These are
down
the people
my
behind
alley.
that. Yeah.
And great for gifts, great for military functions,
Right.
Retirements, promotions,
Yeah.
and this would be perfect. And they're hand done.
Yes, right. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. Made in America, local business in our area, something that celebrates our country, like, the pride that we have in being Americans, and something that you can get for maybe your significant other for Valentine's Day or a birthday or a holiday. I want to show you a couple examples. This is one that they were on their Facebook page. If you go to the Panhandle Shop, you'll see the local Air Force bases are asking about these, right? So just like you said, if you got somebody that that's in the service of any branch, they can do flags like these. They can customize them for the branch that they're in. I thought that was really cool. They can put like a little Air Force thing on there, or Space Force, or Marines, or Army, whatever you want.
And the flag evokes emotion, and
Yeah.
this was why I did not want the honor guard to present and fold the flag for me at my retirement ceremony, because it was just too emotional and too much of a finality.
I know what you mean. I was just at a retirement, just a few weeks ago. And it's like when those guys come up, and they're fine, they're taking their time. I mean, yeah, we were all tearing up.
I did not want that. I had to be strong, and I did not want any chance of watching that flag be folded and presented to me and break down.
You're lucky I wasn't planning your retirement, because I would have made it happen. And you probably would have been mad at me. I know exactly what you mean, because when I got back from being overseas, first of all, I want you to see how big these flags can be. So they don't have to be as large as this, but this is what my friends had ready for me when I got back from being overseas. And this was a surprise. I had no idea. I was headed with my son. I was taking him to a football game. So, hey, we want you to come over and hang out and see us. And they had one of these with my name on it. Oh my goodness.
Beautiful.
Yeah, talk about emotion. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. And there's hey, we missed you being overseas. We're glad you made it back safe, and thank you for what you've done. So Tom and Helen make these. So if you're interested in getting involved, if you've got someone you want to get a gift for, you want to get one for yourself, they can do it. They can customize it, and they can engrave your name on it. It's an awesome business. And then they are actually sponsoring our show, so they're contributing a little bit to us so that we can have this. They've donated some lighting for the set. It's
How
awesome.
do we find them?
They're on Facebook, so I don't know if I have that here, but if you go to the Panhandle Shop on Facebook, that's the best way to contact them. Yep. And then you can just message them and say, and then they've got pictures of all the stuff that they've been doing. And I'll show over the next couple of episodes as we do these shows. I'll show some other examples, other products. But Facebook's the best way.
That's
absolutely
great.
Yeah, so that's an awesome sponsor. All right, so let's talk about some local news, and then before we get into all the stuff we're going to talk about related to you and your advocacy, I always like to hit the local news and just kind of give our perspective on this, and obviously yours, because you're involved in almost all this. I saw the Navarre Press came out today, so I was looking at all the articles they had. They were still talking about the water system results, so I did a whole show on this last week, and I appreciate it because I talked to you right after that, and I appreciate your encouragement with that. They talked a lot about how the articles of incorporation for the system was voted down, and I think this, in my mind, was a tragedy, because we really had a chance to kind of close some gaps in the organization, potentially to start moving forward to end proxy voting and some other things that we don't agree with, and that didn't happen, right? And then they talked about how Mark Miller won, how Rob Lowe won, and then I was a distant third, and then Bill Thiel got fourth. So they talked about kind of the results of the election.
And I don't understand why that didn't go through, because the majority of the board members wanted it to go through, and then we had prior board members be reelected, so with the exception of one, so there was a disconnect there. It seems to
I
me
think
in my
it should be
mind.
something that we all agree on. Absolutely, it should be something that we agree on, is that you need to vote in person. And frankly, a lot of people did, in this election, which I think is a good thing. Huge turnout's a good thing, but the proxy voting thing was part of an issue that they have between their bylaws and their articles, where those things don't match. And so they were simply trying to get to a place where they could resolve those discrepancies, and
But they didn't get there.
They didn't get there, right? So we kind of go back to the status quo. And that's what a lot of this was about, I think, was protecting the status quo, protecting kind of the machine that is the water system to keep on going.
But at the same time, we've got people that are interested in our water system, interested in seeing it operate more efficiently.
Right.
And I would like to see more of an open door to those of
Same.
us that are at the meetings all the time, want to help, sending grants to the board, sending cost savings ideas, revenue generation ideas, generating ideas, and maybe that will change.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at, is win or lose, the issues, the principles are still there for me. I still think it can be managed better. I still think they could be more transparent. I still think we could get a lot more information from them. And then I don't think they need to be raising rates every year. I really don't think that's what they should be doing. And their practice of just kind of looking at expenses and just saying we'll raise it to whatever we need to meet those, I don't think it's how it should be run. But there is some good news. I think Dave Crumley is the new president of the board. It'll be cool to see a libertarian in that position and see what he brings to the table. And maybe we'll get some of those rate cuts. Maybe we'll get a more responsible system regardless. And that's a good thing for the community.
He was against the rate increase and the COLA.
COLA, that's right.
He was
Yeah.
against both of those.
It was.
But they did it.
Anyway.
They did it
yeah.
anyway.
Well, so we'll see. We'll see if there's some change coming, regardless.
And then they voted in the morning
Yeah.
at 7 rather than the people that came that night. So maybe they can get that turned around
I hope
next
so.
year.
I hope so. We'll still be watching. We'll still be involved for sure.
Right. We'll still be at the meetings.
In other news, so Sam Parker's running for his third term. So he's going to be running as commissioner again. I think that was maybe a surprise to some people. We'll see. I think some of the comments that he's made is probably going to get him in hot water with the citizens, right? And then I believe he's suing a local gun store owner, which I find shocking because of all the people that need the First Amendment, you would think it would be him, right? He's suing somebody because of that, because he feels like he's been attacked.
And he's also the one, after we fought, I personally, so hard 2 years ago in January to expand our speaking time to the commission from 3 minutes to 4 minutes.
Right.
He advocated for cutting that to 3 and not allowing us to speak on the agenda items. So he, I don't know where or how this is going to go, but certainly not an advocate for the First
There
Amendment.
really is a debate in this community about the First Amendment, I feel like, about freedom of speech and what does that mean? Should citizens be involved in the county commission? Should they be involved in agenda items? I know Jerry Cooey's fighting for that, right, to hold on to our right to redress issues, to be collaborative with the
fighting
commissioners.
for it too.
Same thing with the water system, is we're fighting for more information, right? But then there's also this kind of backlash against that where people want to shut down those comments or like push you to the side, or you can have your public forum. We're going to limit how much you can speak.
Because
we're
there
going
were
to sue
some
you
bad
if you make
players.
fun of us.
There were
right?
bad players out there that said expletives up there, were very combative with the commission, and we're getting the fallout of that.
Right.
The transgressions of the few are being borne by the many,
Right.
and the punishment that's being doled out, and that's not fair at all. Really, the commission should be more like law enforcement, where they look to Neighborhood Watch to be the eyes and ears, because they don't have the manpower to be everywhere.
Right.
They depend on the people to call them, to give them tips, leads, and that is our role with our commission, if they would just
That's how I see it.
acknowledge it.
Yeah, because there's information that you have. They need. I mean, you said it exactly. So we'll see. We'll see how the people treat Sam Parker. See if see what his candidacy looks like. And then the town center is delayed. So if you don't know about this, Bob from TC Front Porch is proposing a town center for the central area of Navarre, so 98 close to where it meets 87. And this has been controversial because a lot of people see value in it. They see the potential for a walkover, so you could walk from the park, right, on South 98
and not get killed on the highway.
Exactly, not endanger your family doing so. There's the potential for some green space, right, where you could, have an area for events, your kids can come and play and all that stuff. But then the controversy is in the actual town center itself. What are those shops going to look like? And I think that's where they're trying to get the right mix, because everybody knows about Elevate. It started out as a commercial center called the Boulevard, shifted far more to residential, right? And I think there's still a lot of bad blood on that. And then people kind of project that onto Bob. Well, if you have a really good plan, how do we know it's not going to turn into that? How do we know it's not going to shift towards residential? Because people want to see some of these commercial options. And he's been up to the county commission several times and tried to work with folks and taken the feedback and update his plan. So we'll see. We'll see what comes from his updates to his plan and where that goes.
And people have a bad taste in their mouth because now the southbound traffic from 87 has been halted at a stop sign. There's no easy merging. There's been a new traffic light installed within 1,000 feet of an already light at Publix, and it's just a problem. They call it the debacle. Is what they're referring to it. And again, I said the transgressions of a few are born via punishment by the many, and so it's blowing off on Mr. Banakis.
It is. And again, like the biggest challenge for me is seeing these decisions made up in Milton as opposed to here. Is we did an event where I said, hey, Bob, do you want to come out and talk to people and get feedback on your plan, present it? We had over 100, probably 120 people that were at that meeting just to talk to him, hear, what his plans were, give feedback to his team. I love that, because it was at St. Sylvester's. It was right down the street. People can get there out of work. It's really hard to do that when you're coming out of Humboldt Field or people working in Fort Walton or further.
Shagging up there late. And,
right. So I think those decisions should be made local. And then, with what he's planning, the concern is always traffic, right? Is this going to increase the traffic in Navarre because it's already a problem? There's only so much a local business owner can do about that, right?
The issue with that is that concurrency was sidelined and tabled in 2011 by our planning and zoning office because it was considered inconvenient.
Right.
Now, what that means is that traffic concurrency, we don't even consider that when commercial or residential development is going in. So therefore, we have gridlock because we don't have traffic concurrency. We don't have recreation and parks concurrency. We don't necessarily have school concurrency, and the people are paying the cost of that purposeful oversight.
And we don't have an alternate route, right, to get east or west. Absolutely. So so some issues that we'll definitely keep folks updated on. I also like to talk about local events. So you've got, everybody knows, hopefully by now, the Mardi Gras Parade is coming on February 3rd. Mm-hmm. So this is a massive event. They did not have it last year because of the weather and the rain. So we're praying for good weather for this, but it's going to be out on Gulf Boulevard. They're going to have all floats and stuff and bands, and all the restaurants are going to be hopping for this. So if you get a chance to make it out, you're going to really enjoy this because it's tons of people, it's tons of fun, and with all the dark, stormy weather we've had and cold, I can't wait for hopefully some warm weather and a fun event, because typically that's when the weather starts to clear up finally.
Because the Christmas parade got canceled too.
It did as well, yeah. So we're hoping. Please,
we're really in wants for a good parade.
Yeah, nice sunny day, please, hopefully. Because I remember there's been past Mardi Gras parades where it was warm, I was in a t-shirt having a good time, and that's what I'm hoping for this year, so we'll see. Another one is going to be the Set Free Refuge, right, tomorrow night, right?
Tomorrow night.
You're familiar with this one where they're going to be having their gala, their little dinner and dancing and all that kind of stuff. You've done it with the Turtle Center, now they're doing this as well. So
and this is
awesome
to
event.
Fund their women's shelter for the sex trafficked women.
Yes.
And because we're right up from I-10, which is this huge corridor for trafficking for for sex trafficking and drugs.
Yes.
We are a prime area for these girls, and Marcy is doing a great job, and hopefully you'll have her on the program.
Skip Orth, Marcy Landreth, working very hard. Sherry Clinch, I think, is involved with it as well. A lot of good folks that are involved with this, raising money, like you said, to fight trafficking. And I think that's an incredible, noble cause that they're doing. And they've been at this for a few years. I really think they've had a lot of progress in what they're doing. So,
and hopefully she'll give you an update
that would be
on
great.
what this event does, and some caveats about what parents and community members should look for if they come across someone who might be in the public with bruises. It looks like they're being controlled by someone, and who to contact.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing that they're doing.
It's a public safety issue.
And it's just raising awareness about it, right? Because it's one of those topics that people don't like to talk about, right? It's not fun, it's not comfortable to talk about, but yet if it goes ignored, it never gets dealt with, right? So
it's reality.
Yes, for a lot of people, it's absolutely reality. It can ruin their life, and so these guys, fighting that and then taking care of the people that have been hurt is a beautiful thing. So
and they need, I donated food there, furnishings,
supplies. We've done that too.
and
absolutely.
they may have some new needs to tell the
So Set Free Refuge,
about.
take a look. They've got a website, I know, and I'm pretty sure a Facebook group as well. So another great cause. So those are the big items. If you got anything else, any big events, feel free to post those in the comments, and I can bring that up and we can talk about it. Any other big news you wanna talk about? But now the focus is you. Are you ready for this? Because I always ask people if they're going to come on the show and talk to me, I'm like, send me a couple photos of you. Because, we all kind of have opinions on issues, whether it's, the water system or county commissioner or that. But taking the time to get to know each and every person, I think, is very special. And I always learn something new, even people that I've known for years. Of all the people so far that we've had on the show in the month we've done this, you gave me the best pictures. I just want you to know. It's
really?
competitive. Oh, yes. And you're going to see why I say that here in just a minute.
That was like pulling teeth, because I don't like to talk about myself. I like to do things, work in the background.
I know you do.
And get things
it's
done.
Fun. Jersey Jerry, he sent me one picture of him from the 60s or something, and I was putting color in it. And Chuck sent me a few who were great, but you sent me the mother load, and that's going to be awesome. So we're going to have fun. All right.
Okay,
so let's start. We'll take a couple minutes here to go through this, but let's start with the beginning. So tell me about this photo, because we talked about it for a minute before we went live.
This was in Germany, in Stuttgart, and this is my Army father, who has been compared to Elvis Presley on a scale of 1 to 10. The ladies said he was an 11.
Yeah, that's a handsome dude.
In fact, we had caregivers trying to get to marry him during their lunch hour. I had to fire many a caregiver. And this was my mother, the Army nurse, who is buried in a military cemetery, has her own plot because she was a nurse in Korea and World War II. She was a trailblazer during her time.
It's the picture starts to come together, right? Now I see where you get your looks from. I see where you get the intellect from, the ambition from, and all that. That's a beautiful picture. I got a couple more here going down memory lane. So tell me about this one, Boys in Service.
This is my dad on the left, and they were the Riggins boys from Waynesville, North Carolina. He could, what did they say? Skin a deer and run a trout line. He grew up hunting and fishing, and there was a period of time when he trapped and gathered food for the family because their dad left, and my grandfather for a period of time. And so the youngest son joined the Army. He's in the middle. And then the other brother, these are my dad's brothers, he ended up in the Air Force as a security police person.
That's awesome.
So the town featured it in the newspaper because it was a total military family.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a lot of military in my family.
Yeah.
I mean, through and through, parents, uncles, and of course myself.
So what was it like growing up with that? Because for me, my grandfather was in the Army, and I barely knew him because he passed away when I was very young. He was the only one. Right, so I didn't have a pure civilian family otherwise. So what is it like when you're born into this?
Well,
Imagine daunting, right?
A lot of deployments,
Yeah.
and my mother was frequently. We were alone while they made the decision to keep the children, my
Yeah.
sister and I, in school while Dad went over to Germany. So Mom, here she's working as a nurse, and she's trying to raise 2 kids and keep
Yeah.
up with all of that. And there was a lot of, missing and crying on her part.
Yeah.
And the kids go through this too.
Yeah.
I'm sure your children missed you while you
Absolutely.
were gone, and you see your mom, wondering if he's going to make it back or whatever, if they're going to extend him. And that was in the early years. Just as he was getting ready to retire, he was at the 20 year point, 19, he went to Vietnam.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
he was injured both times. He was shot through the ear, shot through the hand, blown out of a
Yeah.
tank up into a tree where he stayed for 24 hours. Then when they finally found him, they got him to Germany for a month. That blew his knee out. And of course, he had a traumatic brain injury. And he had PTSD.
Yeah.
And this was the beginning of the problems for the family, and why I have the strong convictions about the Veterans Treatment Court.
Yeah.
So we were on the opposite end of that. When he came back, he was very angry.
Yeah.
And these people, the medical profession, did not understand what they were seeing with these guys. They were not diagnosed. They were coming back with these invisible wounds.
Right.
And they were sick, and they were not treated.
Yeah.
So they took it out, these people, these service members with the invisible wounds, they took it out on those closest to them.
Yeah.
At 3 in the morning, I heard this thud. I mean, it was a dead thud. And we were in Connecticut at the time, where my dad was working at the Armed Forces Entrance and Examining Station right outside of Yale.
Yeah.
In New Haven. And she yelled, "Rig, what are you doing?" And he thought he was having a flashback.
Yeah.
And he was in a chopper, and the chopper was on fire, and he was trying to get his troops out before the chopper went down. So he was kicking his troops out physically with his feet to get them out of the chopper. He kicked her onto a hardwood
He's
floor
reliving it,
on her
yeah.
back. And then there were anger issues, violence issues, and he was untreated, and that escalated to the point where I moved my sister out under police escort in order to save her life.
To save her life.
And I lost my college education during that period, but I had to do what was right.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the pastor before the incident, and he advised that I get her out of there,
Yeah.
and that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough conversations, and a lot of civilians, they support the military, they love the military, thank you for your service, or they give you a hug or a high five, but a lot of folks don't know what military families go through, and especially what people went through before.
Right.
So
These guys
it's a tough topic.
were untreated, and nobody knew what to do for them. They walked on eggshells. Don't come up behind them. They're trained to kill. They could cease your life with the guy wire in 5 seconds. And my dad was in artillery first, and then he ended up cross-training to be a combat medic. And then he had some additional specialties. He was in demolition, and he was a sniper.
Okay.
And,
wow, he did a lot.
and he taught me how to shoot.
Yeah.
And I guess it was 2 years ago, I went to the
pictures,
firing
Yeah.
range, and
There we go.
one of the owners of the range came in and was looking at my target, and he goes, "Man, how long has it been since you've shot?" And I said, "About 5 years." And he said, "Well, you didn't miss much. You haven't forgotten much."
That's awesome.
So I'm quite proud of that. These are
Yeah.
some pictures of my dad in Vietnam, on the lower left, living outside with the jungle rot, the malaria, being sprayed with Agent Orange like a dead bug, and they would be bleeding from their eyes and their ears and their
goodness.
nose. The top left, our family loved animals.
Is that a monkey?
This is the spider monkey that the team. He was with the MAC-V team. They were special. They were sent in as special advisors.
Okay.
And that spider monkey was their bestest friend, and the spider monkey could detect the enemy in the jungle.
Really?
So as soon as he knew that there were
reconnaissance, that's what we call that.
snipers in the jungle, the little spider monkey was and they knew that the enemy was upon them, and that they had to be very careful. And eventually Dad got prostate cancer and skin cancer from the sun over there, and pretty soon after my mother died, which was shortly after I retired at Hurlburt, he was walking at an angle and it looked like he couldn't see very well. So I drove him cross country here. He was diagnosed with a rare brain disorder called cortical basal ganglion degeneration.
Okay.
Basically, it's a movement disorder. The brain doesn't allow the eyes to see. He became completely blind. He was full-time care, had to be fed, bathed, dressed. Had to have your hands on him from point A to point B with a gait belt for 12 years in our home. It was a labor of love and forgiveness for really tough times growing up, but God gives us opportunities to clear things out.
And the strength, Yes,
and it took everything I had to hang in there and make sure that he got the best care possible.
Yeah, that's what I love about this story the most, is that you stayed involved, right? Like even after going through all those tough times and everything growing up, and after all, that he had gone through and all the wounds that he carried, you stayed involved. You continued to say, this is my dad and I love him, and I'm going to try to be there for him as much as I can.
That's what families do.
That's what families do. Yeah,
now,
I love
others might say, well, let the state take care of him, but he is a Purple Heart winner, a Bronze Star, 2 Oak Leaf Clusters. He gave his life for our freedom and our country and us. And the least I could do was to be there for him.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, but that's not all you did, because you also served yourself, right? I think I have a couple more pictures here.
Yes,
Right.
and this
Show me this
was
one.
my dad, sick as a dog. He had some flu, and he drove from Colorado Springs up to Boulder. This is my commissioning ceremony where he's pinning on my second lieutenant bars in
That's a big
May
day.
of
Yeah, that's a big day.
1976 at Det 105, University of Colorado, Boulder, where I was the supplemental corps commander.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, that's great.
And then after that, I applied, during that time, I applied to a master's program at the University of Oregon in juvenile delinquency.
Okay.
I wanted to work with troubled kids.
Yeah.
I also wanted to go to law school,
Yeah.
but the Air Force turned down my educational delay request to go on to complete my master's, so I knew they weren't going to buy off on going to law school either. So with my degree in criminology and law enforcement, they brought me in as one of the first 7 female officer security police
so cool.
shift commanders.
So cool. Yeah. There's so much here to like pick up on and love, is there's something therapeutic, right, about when you've been through a tough time like your childhood, but then you find ways to help other people through it. You find ways to make sure other folks don't have to go through this.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's
what we're
that's
doing.
the advocacy. I see that, like, out of what you've described comes this person smiling. Look at that picture, who still has hope, right? Still sees the beauty in life, and is fighting hard to identify gaps. Things that could be better, Miss Grant Writer, right? Things that could be better that you can achieve that start to prevent issues from reoccurring, right?
Always looking up Dr. Viktor Frankl, the great, one of 10 greatest books in the world, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
He grew up in a concentration camp in Germany. His parents were killed, his relatives were killed, his siblings were killed, tortured, starved. Out of that, he realized that they could control everything, his food intake, the torture, but they could not control his mind.
Right.
He went to medical school, became a psychiatrist, became a neurologist, and he says that in helping others, you find your best self.
Yes.
In taking yourself out of yourself to help others, you get these endorphins, and in turn, you learn your best self to become your best self.
Absolutely. 100% agree. And it gives you power over trauma. It gives you power over the bad things in life. Is when you can help someone else, recover or prevent that, then you realize it's beatable. It's beatable. And I think that we're going to get into some of the veterans treatment and stuff. Sometimes people get to a place where they feel like it's unbeatable, right? I can't defeat this. That's when the hope starts to fade. But you, my friend, are an example of hope.
Nothing is insurmountable.
That's right.
Nothing.
I love it.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
We're going to talk about that, so that's going to be fun.
And when they told me, because I had this arthritis in my hands and I couldn't brush my hair, I couldn't hold the pencil, they told me I needed 2 years of invasive surgeries on my thumbs. I prayed to God and I said, there's got to be a better way. Lord, help me find it. And I found the top stem cell clinic in the country. My husband drove me there, and I had bilateral stem cell transplants of my own stem cells out of my hip, and I have my hands back.
There's the fighter. I love it. Yeah. It's amazing.
God led me there.
Here's the treasure trove that I was talking about. Check this out. So these are the other photos that you sent. So from left to right.
Okay.
What do we got?
All right. We've got my husband, Chris, who I met at the gym because my hobby for the last 10 years, starting at Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii, where I traveled all over West Asia, was bodybuilding.
I had no idea this was the case.
I got into nutrition and fitness, and I became
flex going on.
I became a competitive bodybuilder.
That's amazing.
And this was from a contest that I competed in
That's
at
great.
Hurlburt. And then right at the bottom, when I was stationed, I was a joint officer. So I went to a joint school in Virginia after I went to Air Command and Staff College in
Montgomery,
Montgomery,
Maxwell.
Alabama. They wanted me to go there and teach, and I put in my retirement papers. But anyway, this is a mixture of Marines, Navy officers, Army officers, and the only Air Force officer that was on the promotion 05 Lieutenant Colonel promotion list. That's me in the white. And it was a man's world, and I was an anomaly. And this was our 05 promotion party.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing having those kind of successes, amazing turning into the service and achieving so much, and accomplishing.
And interestingly enough, the guy right down here at the bottom right, he had a cubicle behind me. I was the computer systems officer for the Joint Warfighting Center at the time at Hurlburt, and he was having these bad headaches. I mean, he was rubbing his eyes, he was uncomfortable, he was having trouble at the meetings, and just disabled by this. And I turned around and I said, you need to go to the doctor and you need to have an MRI. You could have a brain tumor. Yeah. And he had a brain tumor. Wow. And he thanked me for that, and they popped it off the base of his skull, got it out of there, and he lived to tell about it. He was a brainiac, a real smart guy.
Yeah. So that's the advocacy piece, right? We've talked about kind of like your background and what you grew up in. We've talked about how you overcame so much and got to a healthy place yourself. Clearly achieved a whole lot with your life. Now let's talk about this Veterans Treatment Court, because you advocate for so many things in the community. And this is one that people may not know a lot about, but I think it's really connected to your background.
It is.
But so explain this to us, because people may not know what a Veterans Treatment Court is. So what does that mean exactly?
Well, a Veterans Treatment Court is a special problem-solving court, separate and distinct from a normal court. It's administrated by a judge who happens to have been a veteran in his or her past. So that's the prerequisite, so that they can kind of mind meld and understand what the veterans coming through the judge's court, some of the challenges they may have had. And, now we're back to the invisible wounds again. In Santa Rosa County, we have approximately 24,000 veterans in our county. They're coming back from
all over.
different theaters
all
with.
over, yeah.
In fact, I just read last week that some of them were in concussive environment with explosions that occurred, and I'm not sure if this was in Somalia or not, but these folks will return with these invisible wounds, and if they are not treated, they manifest in hypervigilance, rage,
Yep.
impatience. They overreact to emotions, and their main emotion, which overrides everything, is not the assessing their environment or
Yeah.
settling in. Their main reaction now, because of what they've experienced and witnessed, is fear, and they operate out of fear. Hyper. They're in hyperdrive. Their brain is in hyperdrive. The three parts of their brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and I wrote a note here, the medial prefrontal cortex, it's firing at a high rate of speed.
Yeah.
It does not want to calm down after it has witnessed trauma, whether it was a concussive trauma with the brain moving around inside of the cavity, or whether it was something they experienced, like my father. They worked for months to build the orphanage for the children, the Vietnamese children, and the French nuns came in and managed the orphanage. And then they came back months later on maneuvers after they had heard that the orphanage had been burned down, with the children burned alive inside of the orphanage and the nuns raped. My father did not forget that. He was still talking about it when he was in his 80s.
Yeah, I relate to that so much because everybody kind of handles stress differently a little bit. For me, when I've been deployed, I didn't feel a lot of stress when I was there. Even though I was working hard every day, and a lot of people that haven't served or don't know people that have served don't realize when you're overseas, you typically are working anywhere from 8, 12, 13, even more hours a day, and you just kind of get into a routine.
You stuff it.
Yeah, it's not like home where you work and then have a weekend and you can take time off and you have all these chores to do. It's your job, and then maybe if you get a chance, call on your family, and that's it, right? Like, or you go back to your room where there's like 3 other people in your bunk, right? So
you're in a surge.
You end up working all day long, and for me, I deal with the stress when I get home. It's like, I'm very calm when I'm out there, professional, doing my job. Then I come home, I'm so excited to be back, and then about 2 months later, 3 months later, that's when the stress hits, and then it's like you feel that hyper anxiety, or you just feel like you're on edge. I know a lot of my friends and I talk about how hard it is just to go to a grocery store. It's like a sensory overload after you've been deployed, and it's hard to articulate that to someone. What's the big deal? It's a grocery store. But for a lot of veterans, being in social places, right?
Your
it's
brain's
anxiety
picking
producing.
up on danger.
Yeah.
And this is why the fireworks are triggers.
Yeah.
My mother came to visit me while I was stationed at Hurlburt. Both of them were there, and Mom was a fun-loving person. She liked to have fun and laugh, and she had those poppers that are in a package.
Sure. My kids love them. Yeah.
And she was popping them, and my
off.
father was going like this, and he goes, "Ann, stop that."
Yeah.
It was still triggering him. 50 years later. He was much older when he was over there. He was just 40. The young guys were 18. And he was loading them into trucks with the body bags, and he would take their medals and try to get them shipped back to the families. And these were boys that could have been his sons.
Sure.
And he that impressed upon him. It was a sadness that he carried all of his life. But what these folks do is they try to assuage those feelings because they don't know what to do with them. They try to self-medicate, whether it be drugs, alcohol, whatever. And this problem-solving court has many layers and many stakeholders that work with these veterans. So when they go through a veterans treatment court, there are going to be mental health counselors from the VA. There may be some additional behavioral counselors. There's going to be a veterans treatment coordinator to work and schedule things with them. There's going to be a mentor, and we'll need mentors in the community that could meet with them once a week to make sure they're on the straight and narrow. Say, how are you doing, face to face? You know, if the veteran says, I'm having a bad week, I'm just thinking of ending it, you know, and that's when you would highlight that to the counselor or the judge to get them back on track. And then we will want businesses that would assist in hiring them part-time or full-time, so that they don't, if they've lost their job, they haven't deprived their family of any sustenance, because you see, families are collateral damage here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wow, there's a lot. There's a lot there to unpack. We'll start with hope, because we talked about that a little bit earlier. Let's start there. It sounds like the treatment court is trying to receive folks, right, that are in a tough way, and to remind them, hey, there's still hope. There's still a reason to get up in the morning. There's people who understand what you're going through.
Exactly.
You're not alone.
And these are folks, these are expert stakeholders that work with them, and the judge immediately he identifies with the veterans because he's been a veteran, and
he gets it.
Those attendees know that they have a respect for the judge because he or she has been a veteran. You see, so in the past we have not had one in Santa Rosa County. We have sent our people to Okaloosa County or Escambia County. So where the shortfall lied, we didn't have folks that believed we had the numbers. So
we got the numbers.
I believe we had the numbers. And our sheriff's department, I went over and I talked with them, and they agreed that they were probably not accurately accounting, and they have bent over backwards in corrections to come up with a way to identify the veterans. I gave them a definition, the correct definition of a veteran, even if they've served one day in the Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Navy. They are a veteran. They're entitled to different services. They are now documenting how many veterans come through their jail. Okay, so they have told me that since November, as of last week, 94 have come through the jail. So the numbers are there. So the naysayers will see that the numbers are there. The important linchpin right here is the sheriff's office, because this is where they come in. They're identified with this aberrant behavior. The sheriff's office knows first that there's something going on, and they get arrested. Now, the second piece of that I'm working on is the sheriff's office. There is some training that I have found with regard to veterans coming out of the University of Tennessee, the Public Safety Institute. I've talked with the director there, and they allowed me to take the course. I got a certificate of completion. And there's some other training also to diffuse situations out on the street to keep the officers safe and keep the veterans safe. You got to know how to talk to them. You don't come up and slap them upside the head and say, you're going to do what I say, because that's a trigger right there. Shining heavy lights in their face and manhandling them, that is a non-starter. That's going to get more and more charges for that veteran.
Let me go back to the numbers, because that's an important point. Because if you think about the number of people in Navarre that work at either NAS Pensacola or Hurlburt or Eglin or even Duke Field, right? We represent, like Navarre represents at those bases. We supply an enormous amount of manpower, of people to do those important jobs. So on the tail end, you've done those jobs. Now you're dealing with the effects of it, right? That's what we owe them. You know, that's what I owe people that go in and do the jobs that I've done, and even tougher jobs, right? More important jobs. I owe them in this line of service. Hey, I made it through, right? I'm okay. What can I do for you to help you on the back end? And I've had people come and, love on me when I get back from deployment. Take care of me. How you doing? You okay? Do we need to pray for you, right? it's incumbent upon us, Carmen, to follow your lead on this and take care of the people who work so hard to save our country, right? There's a time coming soon where it's going to be the next generation that picks up that mantle and takes it on. How do we make it better for them so we don't deal with the same situations you talked about from Vietnam and before, as much as we can, right?
This is an interventional court, and it lasts 12 to 18 months. There are phases to it.
Okay.
If the veteran does not comply with what the judge has set out in each phase, then they do not progress to the next phase.
Yeah.
And if they complete all phases, then they get a graduation certificate and a chance to have their record expunged.
That's
and
amazing.
That's worked out
That's amazing.
between the state attorney's office, the veteran's attorney, or a public defender, whichever. They, depending on how he or she performs during that time, they have a chance of getting their record expunged, and I call that their second chance in life.
Hope is what that is. I love that. I love that so much because, and that's kind of just my opinions on mental health is, if you go in, and you've talked about this with some of the things with your father, in your life as well. If I go in and I go see, my primary care physician, right? Or I see my eye doctor, say, hey, what's going on with my eyesight? And he gives me some kind of treatment. Hey, you're back up to full speed. Great. That's awesome. But if people go into a mental health clinic, there's that stigma that like, oh, my career's over. And so they're nervous. Like if I go in there, I could lose my job, I could lose everything. So I'm just going to keep it quiet, right? But then there are these stories of people who go in and get treatment and then they get back to work, right? They're like, hey, no, thank you, right? Like I talked to a counselor, they helped me out. I let off some steam, got some healthy practices in my life. Now I'm back to work full up, right? More of those stories of, hey, this person was in a rough spot, happens. Right? You live long enough, you're going to find yourself in a tough spot at some point, right? This person got really low in that tough spot. What's the plan? What's the plan? Is there a chance to give them a way to earn it back? Is there a chance to give them some hope in order to get out of this so they stop hurting people and they start helping people, right?
And this is our opportunity to do this in Santa Rosa County.
Yes.
I wrote the justification for the Senate, our Florida Senate, and the Florida House. And
awesome.
I think
those are the pictures here. This is you continuing to serve, Carmen. This is you continuing to serve the community and the country. So that's her at the state rep, and the state senator, I think, was there, right? And you were at the delegation meeting talking about the importance of this cause.
October 24th.
There's my good friend Tommy Nichols. I love Tommy. He's my buddy.
And I presented it to them at the legislative delegation, and Representative Andrade picked right up on it. He said, "Hey, we'll help you," and then Senator Broxton and Representative Rudman. We'll see whether whether they're going to be successful getting 2 years worth of funding. But we have the military judge, Tony Giroux, has wanted to do this for years and couldn't find the funding. And the Chief Judge of the First Judicial Circuit, John Miller, has assured me, I reached out to him, that if we can obtain the funding and get the manning to support it, that he will sign off on a Veterans Treatment Court for Santa Rosa County.
Most important question, how do people help you in this? Because you're out there fighting every day for this. How do we support you and make this happen?
We need mentors that have been in the military that would be willing to have a background check and meet with these veterans for 1 week, each week, once a week, for the time that they're in the program.
Great.
About 12 months. It's kind of like Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Sure, yeah, I'm very familiar.
Which I participated in. And we need businesses that would be willing to offer a part-time job or a full-time job to one of these veterans who have lost their job or need to focus on their treatment during this time that they're in the program.
They're in their rehabilitation
and to get
process.
back in the employment world to be able to support their families, so that economically and socially and emotionally those families are not suffering.
Right, and it goes back to that hope, of having hey, if you continue through this program, We have a job that you can try, and you know,
Right.
you can start to get your
Right.
well-being
And
livelihood
I
back.
want to
Yeah.
go around and talk to the military advisory councils at the different chambers, because I think that they
Yes.
might be, empathetic to this. But
I think
but
so, too.
meanwhile, I have an email. It is Veterans
Mm-hmm.
Treatment Court, the number 4, src@gmail.com.
Got it.
And I'll repeat that again. Veterans Treatment Court, the
Yeah.
number 4, src@gmail.com.
Awesome. And people can reach out to you on Facebook too, right?
They
on your
can.
Facebook, and
They can.
message you for that as well. And I can email that out.
And
as
they
well.
can get a hold of you, and I'm sure that you can get a hold of me to say, hey,
Yeah, so get involved, folks.
somebody
This is,
reached out to me, and
Easy cause to get involved with.
and I would ask for people out there to add this Veterans Treatment Court to their prayer list, because
100%.
this is something that we really need this year in our county. We've needed it for a while. I believe the stars are aligned
Good.
this year for us with some support, but it needs to be multiplied.
Yes.
And we need more outreach and people saying, what can we do to help? We will need some donations eventually for plaques, for the service flags, for graduations. They
Yeah.
do a cake. They give them
that's gonna be
little
so
rubber
awesome.
duckies when they graduate from one phase to the next. And of course, I need to kind of oversee this, but we do have 2 former military chaplains that have surfaced, and we've got another guy from Navarre that wants to help with the chaplain piece, and that's a big part of it, because there might be a crisis or a family
Sure.
issue, and these chaplains are going to assist the judge in cutting through some of the challenges that
Yeah.
are going to surface.
To save their life. You're saving lives. Beautiful.
And
listen,
we are saving lives.
You are 100%. No, you've made that. They made that very, very clear, and that's a beautiful thing.
In fact, I wrote a
Yeah.
very poignant editorial about a graduation in Escambia County that I attended with Judge
Yeah.
Burgosh, and the News Journal did not print it, but I don't know if we could get it printed locally here, and
I bet you could.
if they don't want to print it, maybe we could put it somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anytime you want
As
to
a
talk about
follow-up
it,
to
anything we
this.
can do to help, we're here for it. So let's
Thank you.
Let's get to a couple comments and see what everybody's saying, because again, this is a great part of the show is talking to folks. I think I mentioned Mark's comment already, is that he's supporting us, which we appreciate. Folks are saying, this was awesome. Let's see. Tom was watching. He said he loves the new wall wash. I appreciate it, Tom. It's going great. They're calling you a true intellectual. I love that.
Really?
I believe that. I believe that. And then someone's on here talking about, why are we talking about the water system? It's important. We're going to talk about the local issues, and whether we win or lose elections doesn't change the fact that we care about the community, and that we're going to continue advocating for it and standing by
It's a
what we believe
community
in.
issue.
Absolutely.
I wanted to add, I'm a researcher, so I like to pull in a lot of information. And my niece, Summer, just recently graduated with her master's degree in social work, and she's actually working with veterans courts in Idaho.
Yeah.
So her colleagues in Idaho are going to be interfacing with me so that we can make this the best program
Beautiful.
that there is. And we didn't talk about any of those articles that
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about that?
You can mention it. Yeah, go for it.
For the
Yeah.
Navarre Press.
I think I showed one of these. Let me go back here real quick. Yeah.
After my
one
dad
right there.
died in 2011, I was approached by Navarre Press to come back and work with them. I could not work as the editor while I was taking full-time care of my father, so I worked part-time. But after he died, I was approached by them to come back and work as their copy editor, and that means, dot the I's, cross
Sure.
the T's, make sure there's no plagiarism, attribution, blah, blah, blah is done correctly. And I went to sleep one night and I had this thought. I knew that the veterans were getting a busy signal when they called the crisis line, the suicide hotline. And I wrote an editorial about that as an introduction to a 5-part series on veteran suicides. And in 2016, that series was distinguished as the #1 award winner for in-depth reporting.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
Navarre Press got that distinction, and I got a trophy and
Yeah, that's
stuff
cool.
like that. But really, it talked about the importance of colleagues and the community in helping these veterans. It talked about new state-of-the-art treatments like hyperbaric oxygen treatment. Now they've come out with the stellate ganglion block treatments to actually try to short circuit that hypervigilance that's going on there in the brain, and that's been very, very good. Meditation, and I would like to see this program incorporate some equine therapy.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to Sean Hollenbeck from the War Horse Project.
Well, we're going to have you back on because there's a whole lot more to this. We could go for another hour, I know. So we're going to have an update, and we'll get into all these articles. I think would be a great thing. So here in a few weeks, we'll have you back on to get an update on where we're at, and then, again, what folks can do to support it. A couple more comments, then we'll close out for today. So Mark was talking about the developments or discussions on the golf course. This is at Hidden Creek, so related to the water system stuff. We'll keep an eye on that. I do think it should be a restaurant. That was my opinion, and one of the things that I was fighting for. Somebody asked, what about kids with special needs that need more therapy in this area? I don't know if that's necessarily related to that. I think it's specific to veterans, right?
But I mean, I name a topic that I can't give you a reference on. There is some behavioral treatment for special needs kids here in town, and I'd like to talk with you after this and give you some leads. And
So we'll
if they're interested in you having a program on that,
message us. We'll follow up with you about that. A couple last comments here. Always dressed to the nines. I believe that they loved your pictures. We talked about how the numbers for incarceration being pretty high. Recovered substance use and mental health mentors would be very helpful. That's a huge part of this. We talked about that, of how people try to self-medicate, but that's not the right answer. It's getting the help that you need.
And we've got some real challenges because
Here's
there
our
are
last
some deleterious drugs on the market now, and I'm hoping that Wes, you'll get into that with the Sheriff's Office Narcotics Division, because not only are the veterans at risk, the adolescents, the community members, all it takes is one pill mixed with this fentanyl, heroin, and now a new horse tranquilizer that will ensure that there's no coming back from an overdose. And as a matter of fact, we are the top area in the state of Florida for overdoses, 350 in the first 6 months of 2023.
Yeah, a lot more to talk about with that. I love this comment by Summer. She says, community is so important. These veterans need pro-social activities and exposure with different community programs. And you talked about that. You talked about redemption. You talked about giving them the chance at a life again, giving them a chance at employment, potentially if they do all the right things, depending on what they've done, potentially the chance to have the record expunged. That's hope, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's something that I think, based on your story, you found along the way and that you're sharing with other people. There's a lot of causes that you're involved in, so this is why I have to have you on the show as often as you can make time for us. But I'm looking forward to updates on this, looking forward to seeing, hopefully someday soon, the center opening and having the ribbon cutting and all that stuff. And I know you're going to be at the center of it, just like you are in so many things. So, hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. I loved all the comments. I think this is the most comments we've ever had on the show. Really appreciate the Panhandle Shop for sponsoring us and helping us kick this off. If you're interested in getting involved with our group, interested in getting involved in a lot of the projects that we support, feel free to message us on our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Website is preservenavarre.com. You can join on there and become a member. Carmen's one of our awesome members. She can tell you more about that. And then, of course, feel free to message her by all means, because this is an important cause and one that's dear to my heart for sure. So thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Wes, and thank you all for tuning in on about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. And I want to bring this to fruition, and this is my legacy project.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it come to fruition, and I know it's coming. So thank you, Carmen.
Wes.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next Thursday night at 7.